Yeah, Joe, I think you said it best at the top. This is like the championship that nobody wants to win. When I was going over all the details about this race for today's show, seeing how this is going up and down, it's like a seesaw. It's like literally the championship that no rider wants to win. It's just really crazy. It's like maybe we should award the championship to nobody this year if these two keep, having mistake after mistake after mistake. But a MotoGP race earlier today in Indonesia resulted in a dramatic shakeup in the championship battle on Saturday. Jorge Martin started on the pole and crashed on lap one, but managed to get going. He finished 10th, one place short of scoring 1 point in the sprint race. But in the Grand Prix, Jorge Martin is now 21 points ahead of Paco Bagnaia after going from pole to victory. 36 points is the maximum a driver can score, winning both the sprint and the Grand Prix. Joe, do you see any rider with a clear advantage with 5 races to go?
No, I don't. Like you said, this just seems to be one of those deals where the rider claims the championship lead. Next thing you know, they fall out. That's what I was thinking in the sprint race. First lap, Jorge Martin is leading Pecco Bagnaia. Okay, this could be a good battle between the two of them. And as they're wrapping up their first lap, Pecco Bagnaia goes sliding, spinning. Thankfully, for Pecco Bagnaia, where he spun out, it was all tarmac, no gravel trap, nothing for tossing the bike around. The bike just skidded. You can see where the bike got damaged, got essentially grinded down from sliding, but he was able to keep going right on. Just coming up one position short of scoring points in that sprint race. Pecco Bagnaia just went on to take the win. But then in this race, the Grand Prix, Jorge Martin showing what he could do when he's at his best. Just go out there, get the win. He has such raw speed, pace in that bike. He could really deliver the fight. Pecco Bagnaia, I've sort of sensed that he was taking a little bit on the easier side just because he saw I don't have it against Jorge this weekend. But we're going to be racing again next weekend. A streak of races for MotoGP. So overall, I think this is a very even matchup between the two riders. Pecco in the factory Ducati, a Premac satellite team with Jorge Martin, who is leaving for Aprilia next year. It's going to be really interesting to see how this championship battle turns out.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. I think both riders are equally matched, but it's probably going to come down to who makes the least mistake and who doesn't make the last mistake heading into the championship round later on in the year. But yeah, it's definitely coming down to the very end. Going to be exciting to see what's going to happen and who ends up holding the MotoGP World Championship at the end of the year. It'll be quite a story for Jorge Martin to go out of Ducati into Aprilia, as the world champion. That would definitely certainly be something. And one dramatic moment that occurred when there was an engine fire for Marc Marquez, which ended up taking him out of the race. According to CrashNet.com, Marquez has been told that his championship hopes are over. However, mathematically, he's still in it if Martin and Bagnaia were to have more DNFs, but Marquez will have to be consistently in the top three, mainly winning races. So in a way, it would basically be a must win every single race here on out for Marc Marquez to truly have a shot at the championship. So the odds are definitely stacked way against him right now. But given, the seesaw effect we've seen with Bagnaia and Martin, we definitely don't want to put that out of question. But I want to hear your opinion, Joe. Is Marc Marquez truly out of this championship battle?
I don't think so. And one of the big things for Marc Marquez, this is the first time in the championship bout in the sprint race era for him. When he won his past championships, he was not dealing with sprint races. It was just the Grand Prix races. So now with these sprint races, and this is the thing that has really just made this championship so different. In every sprint race, the top 9 riders will score points. If you crash out, well, the good news, you got the Grand Prix where the top 15 riders are going to score points. So for Marc Marquez, his championship hopes, I very much believe they're still alive. He is going to need to rely on Jorge Martin, Pecco Bagnaia to continue what they're doing, and essentially having races where they fall out, they crash out, and he gets consistent podium after podium because he cannot do it if he's getting, say, a couple podiums, top 5 finishes, but Jorge and Pecco Bagnaia are still finishing in the top 10, scoring a lot of points. he cannot do it if he's going to make mistakes, have issues like he has had earlier this season. It's very unfortunate to see that engine fire. I was really curious to see how he would do, especially after the sprint race where he went from 12th up towards the front. Marc Marquez, I think, still has a shot at this. The big thing, though, is just that expectation he's setting for himself. He might be thinking the championship's out of reach. Just go out there, get the wins. If he does that, guess what? If we see Pecco Bagnaia crashing out, if we see Jorge Martin crashing out, he's not, he could be in it. It is not over for Marc Marquez. I see a lot of his confidence back. I mean, we're talking about engine fire, something mechanical. We're not talking about a mistake he made. I see him still an eligible championship contender. He's just going to need some luck with the way this season's going. And I think a lot of it is because this is the second time we have the sprint race format. We're seeing how the sprint races are essentially allowing riders to have mistakes on weekends, but you have another race, whether it's the Grand Prix or the sprint race, to still gain points and not just have a big fat zero at the end of the weekend.
Yeah, and in a way, Joe, the MotoGP sprint races kind of reminds me of stage points that we have in NASCAR, because you see you'll have a driver win stage 1 and stage 2 dominate the race, and then in stage 3, you'll either see them get involved in an accident or have like a mechanical issue of some sort. And in the old age of NASCAR, that happened, what you did early in the race didn't really matter. And then it was a frustratingly long day. But if you run consistently up front, get those stage points, and something bad goes wrong, you can mitigate, what was a very disappointing ending, and you can still end up coming out with a good point stay, even if you do finish towards the back. Yeah, so in a way, I'd really like to compare these MotoGP sprint races to stage points you have in NASCAR, because it can truly help keep you in the fight. And just like we're seeing with some of the NASCAR playoff drivers this year, thank goodness for Kyle Larson and Tyler Reddick stage points, so they would really be in trouble right now. So I think that's an interesting comparison. And Joe, I want to know your opinion on that as well. Like, do you think there's a comparison between the MotoGP sprint races and the stage racing we see in NASCAR with the stage points that are awarded?
Easily, yeah, because you look at MotoGP, those essentially sprint races, they're going to be every single race weekend. You could have a bad sprint race. You're going to miss out on those points, but they're half the points of the Grand Prix. So essentially, you will need 2 Grand Prix wins. Two sprint race wins to equal 1 Grand Prix win. So the incentive is still the Grand Prix is the most important part. But in the case of like Jorge Martin, especially last year, where he's getting a lot more sprint race wins, but not getting the job done in the Grand Prix, he was still a championship contender till the end. Prior to that, when we didn't have the sprint races, he was not exactly that championship contender. He was just crashing out, being very inconsistent. For Pecco Bagnaia, such a huge lead, but he doesn't do good in the sprint races. So the 7 Grand Prix wins, that's great. He leads all the riders, but in the sprint races, it's just not showing there. So it's really changed the dynamics. So I think comparing it to the stage points is a great way of seeing, okay, stage points, this is how much it matters when it comes to that championship. The big goal is still the Grand Prix win, but that sprint race is very important, especially since it's every single race weekend. You cannot just take it easy. And MotoGP has no bonus points for pole, like F1, IndyCar, Formula E. No bonus points for leading a lap or leading the most lap. It's just going out there, getting good finishes. So the sprint races definitely adds a new element